Welcome back to the Citizens Fancast. As always, I'm your host, Evan, and obviously a lot to talk about this week. We all watched the two matches. We watched what happened. We saw the injury that happened, and subsequently also know the obvious injury news that we've unfortunately gotten regarding Rodri. But obviously, I will cover all of that. I'm going to try to stay as calm as I can. I'm still pretty fired up, well over 24 hours after the match. But like always, we'll get into the Inter match first, and then we'll move on to Arsenal, and then talk a little bit more about the whole Rodri situation and just kind of what it means for us and what it means going forward. Just with the likelihood of him probably not returning for the rest of the season. So a lot to talk about. I'd like to say I'm excited to talk about it, but I'm just here to talk about it more than anything else. So not too much with that. And then obviously I'll preview the matches we have coming up because a quick turnaround, and we're already back tomorrow with Watford. If you're not watching this live, we're back today with Watford. So it's a short turnaround. Doesn't give us a lot of time to really dwell on the injury situation. Not that I think Rodri would have played. I think we're going to see a lot of rotation for that match as well. But it's going to be interesting to see what we do moving forward without him in our lineup for, like I said, likely the season for at least the foreseeable future. So with that being said, let's jump into the Inter match. I took the best notes I could. I didn't have the best capability. Had some other things that were distracting my attention during this, but I did the best I could to kind of see what I could from this match. But starting lineup: Ederson, Rico Lewis, Akanji, Diaz, Guardiola, Rodri, De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Savio, Grealish, and Haaland. Kind of what I expected for the most part in a lineup. Rico Lewis back out on the right, as opposed to where he was what feels like a lifetime ago, two weekends ago in the match. But I think for the most part, it's our strongest and most proven lineup to the season. Obviously, you put Rodri in there. He hadn't played a ton up until that point, and but it's about the strongest lineup, right? And that's where I say, put Rodri in there because he's our strongest player. Foden obviously missing, but I don't think, with him still coming back and with him being, in the lineup just slightly here and there, I think is better, honestly, just with the potential positions he could play and what they've proved. I'd rather see, Bernardo, Savio, Grealish out there in the lineup as opposed to him, and let him get back to his full match form and fitness before we just throw him out there and into a full match, trying to do a full 90. And so obviously no goals in the match, 0-0, and really what I expected from Inter. And they basically play a back five. They got their back three with the wing backs. So it was always going to be hard to break down. It was hard to break down in the final a couple of years ago. 60% possession. I think that's really kind of what we would expect from a match like that. They're going to have that low block or park the bus, whatever you want to call it. They're going to come out with that, try to play with speed on the counterattack, and try to capitalize with that, and that's really kind of what they did for the majority of their the beginning of the match. Just it worked. I'd say for the first 30 or so minutes, I think it was working really well for them. Not that we were playing terribly bad, but they were just playing a little bit better than us. The way they set up and wanted to play in the match, I think they got to do that a little bit more than what we got to do for that first 30 minutes, first half for the most part. So kind of what I would expect. And first half, not a ton to say. In all honesty, Ederson did well. He kept us in the match with some good saves. But for the most part, it was really just trying to break down having so many bodies behind the ball. So it's hard to break down. We've seen in the past this team struggle when other teams do this, put so many bodies behind the ball. It's frustrating. It makes it difficult to create chances, makes it difficult to not necessarily create chances. I guess that's not the best way to say it. It makes it more difficult to create good chances, dangerous chances. We can play a ball in. It's just when they have big, strong center backs that can get up with Holland, it's hard to find his head. And when there's so many bodies, it's hard to find his feet. And same thing goes with our wings. And it's hard to find any space to get any kind of shot or chance off. You almost have to try to shoot from the outside or get lucky and get a deflection. And I think you saw that we struggled. Pep obviously thought that we needed changes. Foden came on, Gundogan came on for De Bruyne and Savio at half. Obviously, De Bruyne had other issues going on. We'll discuss that a little. I'll discuss that a little bit more later. And so that kind of forced Bernardo out to the right side. Those two through the central or through the center, and I think it helped a lot. It seemed to help create chances, open them up a little bit more, give us an opportunity to get more goals. I mean, Gundogan had some chances himself. Foden had one himself. Say they could have put him away or should have put him away. Probably with those chances, we should have put one away. We didn't, but I think a 0-0 in this format against a team like that is nothing to dwell on. We're going to have opportunities to gain points, to move on and progress through the Champions League. I'm interested to see kind of how the other big teams continue to progress as well in the new format and see how they do, because we've seen Madrid hiccup at times in past Champions League, but still move on and win their group. So with the new format, it'll be interesting to see if you lose one or two, what it could really do for you. But I do think we need to be a little bit careful to just make sure we try to win as many of these as possible. But it's Pep made good subs. I mean, I think Grealish was doing as much as he could for the most part, trying to create as much as he could. He was being fouled a ton, so it's kind of hard to do anything when you're on the ground every minute or two. But eventually, Doku came on as well, and I think all of our subs were good. They were progressive. They made an impact, and you could tell that it was a positive change. We had our chances and we put them all directly at Summer and couldn't put any away. And it's a little frustrating. But I think for me, when you look back to the last time we played them in the Champions League final, it was a lot of the same thing. They tried to counterattack. They got their chances. Fortunately, they didn't put any of them away. And our chance came from a ball slotted in behind, a deflected cross, and Rodri came in with a perfectly placed shot. So, it's not like it really was much different. It's just we were able to put a goal away then. Once we got that goal, we got more chances. Obviously, Foden had that chance in the final with that great turn that he had to open up their defense. But, the more chances come when you get a goal against a team like that, that's going to sit back because it forces them to put more numbers forward, not just counterattack. They can't just sit back and hope that they're going to get a result. So when you don't get a goal, they're allowed to just continue to play the way that they want, and it doesn't really make them uncomfortable. And I think, in those situations, we have to find a way to get a goal to make these teams a little more uncomfortable and, put them off their game plan so we can play the way that we want to play and not play the way they want us to play. Um, as far as man of the match, I would give it to Guardiola. I think he did great in the match and didn't put a foot wrong. So he continues to improve, continues to be solid, continues to show why we brought him into our squad. So all in all, not the end of the world. Obviously, it would have been great to get the 3 points, especially against a team like that. But it's not like we drew against a terrible team. We at home, I would have loved to get 3 points from that match, but it's not the end of the world. So I don't hate the result. Obviously, you'd love a win. I hoped and thought that we'd be able to find a way to break them down. I didn't expect the match to play into their hands as well as it did. But anyway, I don't think that's why most people are here to discuss the Inter match. So time to get into the Arsenal one. Um, I I have a lot to say with this. I don't have a ton to say with the match because there's not the match was really just them sitting back the entire time. But we'll start with the lineup: Ederson, Walker, Akanji, Diaz, Guardiola, Rodri, De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Savio, Doku, and Holland. So I expected Foden to start for the first point, just because leading up to the match, Pep said he was fully fit to do 90 minutes. So with that, he kind of made it seem like he would be playing and starting the match, but obviously didn't. 2 goals in a draw. Uh, First one by Holland in the 9th minute with an assist from Savio, and then in the 98th minute by Stones, and then the great looming possession stat that we had of 77%, which included, I believe, 88% possession in the first half, or in the second half, because they just really, really parked the bus. But you could see what they were trying to do from the start. Havertz came out from the kickoff, ran right into Rodri, and of course, no repercussions, nothing. Just gets away with it, and you could tell from the beginning that they were going to try to injure him. That was the goal. The goal in the match was to come out, and I don't know if it was to be physical with Rodri and hope that they tire him out, or I'd love to give the benefit of the doubt that a team would not just come out and intentionally try to injure a player by just dirty play. And I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt of that, but they were definitely trying to mess with Rodri, and I don't know if it was to get in his head. I don't know if they're still upset that he said that they have a shitty mentality, which they do, by the way. And this match only further proved that throughout the entire club, the players, the manager, the rest of the staff, the fans, their former players, all of them, terrible mindset, and they just don't get it. They don't understand anything. They are the most oblivious fan base on the planet. I despise the Liverpool fan base. I despise the United fan base, but for some reason, this one just takes it to a whole new level every single time. But regardless, uh, from the beginning, a few actual football things that I noticed just with the match in general. Bernardo taking up space on the wings. We've seen De Bruyne do this as well through matches. Uh, Taking up space on the wing, frees up space in the middle. Obviously, you're forced to bring more bodies out to the wings, allows players to run through the middle, opens up the middle. Gundogan had some space from that, got an early chance with a free run in the box. Did not convert, but regardless, good chance. And then the we had the Holland goal, which was a great run by him, able to stay on side, check his run a little bit, and just a great ball in behind by Savio. Center backs were nowhere to be found on that for as much as they're bragged up. And also, Raya did not do a very good job of covering his front post for how much he's being bragged up of late as well. But the Rodri injury, again, from my end, seemed like a little bit of a dirty play to the extent of there's no reason to really be there's following a run and then there's following a run like that. It just wasn't the normal way you follow a run. And yeah, it's unfortunate. It's going to be tough without him. And again, I'll talk about that more. I want to talk more about the match, but uh, Gundogan was already on. Sorry, Kovacic came on for him and played pretty well. I bet with how Arsenal played, it was really kind of hard not to. But anyway, uh, get a free kick for Arsenal. They take the free kick 10 yards up from where they were supposed to, uh, and Michael Oliver calls over Kyle Walker and then proceeds to let Arsenal just play before Walker gets back to his position. There's not much more to say than that. It shouldn't have stood. I don't think he ever blew his whistle to start the play either, which he should have done, especially with calling Walker out of position. One of the first things they teach you is in an instance like that to make sure that you allow the players to return to their position. So if you're going to call a player over, you need to let them get back to their normal position. It's match fixing. It's match fixing if you're not. What are you going to do next? Call Ederson over and then just let them lob the ball in the net? It's the same thing. Walker said it best. He said he's the last line of defense. He brought up the keeper reference as well. And being that last line of defense, if you're calling him over, getting him out of position, and then just allowing them to run in behind, it's just ridiculous. But they get that goal. They had a corner that they almost scored off of where they blocked off Ederson. Luckily, it didn't go in. Had another one, blocked off Ederson again. And of course, they allow it. And it's frustrating. I've seen too many people, too many analysts, commentators say that it's completely legal to do. It's not legal to do. You can't just stop another player from running. Not legal to do, by the way. It should have been called back. I don't know what they were looking at, but they're red, so that's what you get. But speaking of red, Trossard gets his red. They were having dirty plays all game, and he had a pullback on a counterattack, obvious yellow. The foul on Bernardo Silva itself probably could have been a yellow. I know the commentary was trying to build it up as Bernardo trying to be smart, and he saw him and sold it. You can't just plow through someone's back like that. I don't think Bernardo even saw that he was there, in all honesty. But I'll say more about the bias of the commentary and whatnot. But a second yellow for ultimately kicking the ball away as well. Obviously, all the Arsenal fans are screaming corruption for another obvious red card. Their players are just stupid. They kick the ball away when they're already on a yellow. That's a lack of composure. It's a lack of maturity. It's just a lack of football intelligence to already be booked and to do something that is a automatic booking is moronic. But it's whatever. And then so we go into halftime, and immediately, the halftime analysis, terrible red card. That's all they're saying and everything like that. And then you come back, and the commentary and I don't remember who was on the game, nor do I care who was on the game, but this is the crap that continues to happen. So we come back from the break and they tell us, oh, it was for Trossard kicking the ball away. That was his second yellow. And immediately they say, well, Doku should have got a yellow card too because he kicked the ball away. Now, to be in a position where you are supposed to give unbiased analysis, to just straight up say that is absolutely ridiculous. To have that cooked up in your brain to remember, oh, Doku kicked the ball away. And if you watch the scenario, Doku kicked the ball back. The Arsenal players started to complain. Michael Oliver proceeded to tell the players he was kicking the ball to where he was telling them to take the kick from in the first place. But for some reason, where this is all footage, by the way, that everybody can see, we just ignore this part. We ignore the fact that these actual factual things happened and just proceed to see it for what will confirm our biases. When you're in a position like that, I'd expect it from the Arsenal fans. They have zero morals, zero integrity. But when you're supposed to be an unbiased commentary and you're coming out and saying that, where you can see exactly what happened and can see this stuff and really had halftime to review it, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's so unprofessional. I'm so sick of all these people getting paid, however much they're getting paid, to just shit on City nonstop. And that's all they do. They sit there and they brag up Arsenal and they brag up Liverpool and they brag up United, who is not even relevant, by the way. And they brag up all these teams and continuously shit on City. City's not the only one. They shit on Chelsea as well. I would assume they probably also shit on Tottenham as well. And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous to be in a position like that. I understand you're going to have clubs you support and whatnot, but you're also paid to do a job and to do it well, and to come out and do that and to sound like that and to sound that idiotic. It's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, you know, they also came out after the match, the analyst in Chicago, and said Arsenal earned respect. I'm trying to figure out how Arsenal earned respect with that performance, because they came out, they tried to injure our best player. Then they got 2 goals which should not have stood. And then they sat back and played anti-football for 45 minutes, getting absolutely annihilated. And that earns them respect, because in my opinion, I have less respect for that entire club, fan base, team than I've ever had. I don't understand how that earns any kind of respect whatsoever. But I will say they were down a man and they sat back. I to an extent understand why they did it. They weren't going to beat us regardless. And we've seen before that that's what they were going to do. 10 men, 11 men, that's what they were going to do in the second half. I don't care what anybody tells me. I know for a fact that's what they were going to do. But I do think we need to try to figure out how to break down these low blocks a little bit better. They were giving Diaz so much space at the top of the box. I would have loved to see Foden or Holland drop into that space and just see if they could fire a shot. You know, if you can get it through the bodies or get a deflection or something, it'd have been nice to see if, you know, we could have put something together like that, or if that would have pulled more bodies out to them. Obviously, they're not too concerned of Diaz taking shots from there. So put someone who's more of a threat, who's more willing or more able to, you know, punish them for having 10 men in the box. Would have loved to see that. I would have liked to see Foden come on a little bit earlier, create a little bit more. I don't think he really got the opportunity to create a ton. It didn't really feel like he could get himself in the correct positions needed to be able to really make an impact. But obviously, we got the late corner. Stones was able to put it in, and thank God he was, because that's the point isn't as important, I think, as making sure Arsenal didn't get 3. I think that's the big thing. So obviously we score the goal. Holland throws the ball at the back of Gabriel's head, and I know everyone's screaming for a red card. I, by definition, could it have been? Probably. Do I care? Nope, not at all. Uh, it was reviewed, and they didn't give one. So you know, Rhea also, I saw today, wasted 9 minutes on goal kicks, and he never got a yellow card. And I was talking about, I was talking to my brother about this, and he said that, oh, it was probably even because Holland escaped a red card a couple times. But I want to lay this out because Michael Oliver lost control of the match the second he didn't card Havertz at the beginning. So I'm going to run this down, and basically, there's that's the first event. So Havertz runs into Rodri. They review it. I think it could have been a red. They only gave a yellow, or didn't give anything, and at least give him a yellow. So you give him a yellow there. Let's say that's what happens. Then you have Holland, who a couple minutes later uh, plows through Gabriel again, and he doesn't get a yellow. Now, based on Havertz not getting a yellow, I understand him not getting the yellow. Does that happen if Havertz gets a yellow? Probably not. So you can eliminate that even from the conversation. Rodri gets injured. I feel like it's kind of 50-50. It could have been a foul, could not have been. I'm okay letting it go not as a foul. But, they did say that they were cracking down on things like that in corners where they were going to call those fouls. And obviously that hasn't happened. But the first goal happens. Kyle Walker gets called out of position, no whistle to start. They allow the goal. That should have been called back as well. So in this scenario, Havertz is on a yellow. It's 1-0 to City. And then you have the second goal. Impeded Ederson. Again, that one should have got called back. So again, 1-0 to City. Havertz is on a yellow. Trossard's on a yellow for the foul he committed. Now, he's still in a scenario where he still commits that second foul. He gets a red. Martinelli and Havertz both go to the ref, surround the ref, and start arguing that it shouldn't have been a red card. Those should have both been yellows. So there's your second red of the game because Havertz should have got his second yellow. If all this gets refed correctly, Arsenal is down a player, down two players. We still have our players, and they're going to come out the same way in the second half. They're not going to attack us. We probably could get a goal because they might have been forced to at least try to come at us a little bit, and being down a player or two completely changes it. And being up in the match also changes our approach in a way. So all that would lead to Holland not doing that at the end of the match. So you can say what you want about that he could have got a red or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you ref that game the way it should be refed, literally 10 seconds into the match, none of this happens. None of it. And we're screaming corruption that City is getting the calls in some way or fashion, and I just don't understand. I'm biased. I'm City through and through, but for the love of God, how the fuck can you watch that match and then come back and say, yeah, City got all the calls when they didn't score a legitimate goal in the entire match and they got away with so much shit. It's just absolutely ridiculous. How a keeper is allowed to waste 9 minutes when they're up and never get booked for that is absolutely baffling. Absolutely baffling. But at the end of the day, I think it's very important that we did not lose that match. Still on top of the table on 13 points. Liverpool are on 12. Villa are on 12. And Arsenal's on 11. But the Premier League's got to do something. They got to do something. I'm very much for the consequence of if you injure a player, you should have to sit out the same amount of time that you cost that player. It'd be hard with the Rodri one to put time on that or to put blame on that in a way, but it's just ridiculous because they came out with a plan to injure him and they clearly did it. And that's the most frustrating part, that you could see what they were doing from the beginning. They were going to use these dirty tactics to try to win the match, and they almost did. It almost paid off for them. But how they can be allowed to behave like that, to act like that. There was a physio running on the field before the ball was even out of play. He should have been escorted out of the stadium for that. I mean, if he's a part of the coaching staff and running on the field like that, it should be a red card. So again, why we're allowing this stuff, I don't understand. It seems like, again, if Michael Oliver takes control of that match from the beginning, City doesn't retaliate in the certain manners or fashions that they did, and it's a so much more dignified match. But instead, I don't know what the goal was in that match for him to as a referee. I don't know what he was trying to do because he lost control immediately. You could tell that as soon as Holland plowed into their defenders in the first 5 or 10 minutes, whatever the hell it was. And that's the point. If you control it from the first 10 seconds, you don't have those other events that happen and the match doesn't get out of control. We don't sit here and have these arguments. But instead, you let the players and the managers take advantage of you and you give bullshit goals that never should have counted, and it's just ridiculous. And I'm very frustrated. I'm extremely pissed off. The scream I let out when John Stones put the ball in the net is a noise I've never heard from myself before. Um, but I'm very glad I don't live in an apartment anymore where I have people around because I definitely would have got a complaint. Um, I'm gonna have to try to get that under control. My yelling and screaming during these matches, with a infant coming on the way in the next month and a half here or so, or buy them headphones or something, so I can still scream like an absolute idiot during these matches. But I'd like to hope that I won't be this pissed off for this reason. It's going to happen, but I yeah, I can look back, I can put a smile on it, I can laugh a little bit now, but it really is something that the league needs to get under control. And it's not even if it's City, it's even if it's benefiting City, their they need to just hire officials that know how to do their job appropriately, plain and simple. So back into the injury news, uh Ake, 1 week closer to coming back. Hopefully we see him fairly soon. And Bob, I haven't heard of any setbacks yet, so hopefully by the end of the year we will see Bob come back yet. De Bruyne, like I said, went out in the Inter match, will not be back for tomorrow's match against Watford. Pep said maybe back by Newcastle. I would think maybe he'd be subbed on. I don't expect him to start if he's not fully 100%, especially with the Rodri injury. So if you don't exist on City Twitter in any manner or fashion or know any City news, obviously he tore his ACL, will likely be done for the season, and it leaves a big hole in our lineup. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the best approach is going to be. I'm not sure who is going to fill in. I think it's going to be a lot of combinations of players. Kovacic had a good start to the season, as did Bernardo, and I expect a combination of them. You might see Stones, Nunez, Rico Lewis, Gundogan. It's kind of the reason we brought Gundogan in, to give a little more stability. Uh, it's going to be hard to replace him. You cannot replace a player of that ability and that quality. But the way I look at it is, we have a lot of good players. We have a lot of skilled players. I think if this injury was going to happen, it's better to happen earlier in the season where we have time to figure it out. If we were in an intense title run towards the end of the year and we're relying on Rodri to win these matches, and now it's the last 5 to 10 matches and we have to try to scramble to figure it out, it'd be difficult. I think this early, there's still time to play with things. There's times to figure out who fits best. Like I said, we've seen Stone step up into the midfield. Kovacic did very well in that role when he's been there. In my opinion, Bernardo can pretty much play anywhere on the field. Uh, Nunez is going to play a role. I look at him as more of an attacking player, but if we could utilize him more defensively, great. And then Obviously, Gundogan, he can step back. Again, I look at Gundogan as more of a box to box player and Rodri more defensive, but I think Gundogan has the ability to do that with help, whether that's from Stones or Rico Lewis or whatever. It might take, two players working together to fully fill in for Rodri, and we're not going to be the same team that we are with him, but it's going to be, like I said, it's going to take a team effort. It's going to take everybody buying in, and at a minimum, hopefully the squad is motivated to win these trophies without him, or win these trophies for him, and continue to strive for excellence. I mean, if they leave yesterday's match and they're not more fired up to go out and win 5 in a row and prevent that team from winning another title, I don't think anything will. So, obviously, you could tell, the passion's still there, the emotion's still there, and it'll be interesting to see what Pep does, but I have full trust until I see something not. And we haven't really played him a ton to this season, and we've been successful. Do I think we've looked our best? No. But I think it hasn't really been a lack of him being out there. It's really been, I know these players can play a little bit better than they are and hit that next level. And, if we can win matches, rack up the points early, continue to rack up points as the season goes on. We got another big one on Saturday with Newcastle. If we can continue to get the 3 points, not lose matches, get a little bit of a buffer, anything helps. The more of a buffer we can do in the Premier League, the more we can focus on Champions League or FA Cup or whatever. I don't know how much we care about the Carabao Cup. It's whatever. But I'll go right into the preview for Watford then with that. But it'll just be interesting to see what we can do. I'd expect us to try a bunch of different things, maybe try a change of formation, potentially even. We'll see. We'll see what Pep feels is best. He's way smarter than I am, that's for sure. And I've learned to not question him for the most part until he gives me a reason to. And thus far, he hasn't led us wrong. But like I said, back with Watford tomorrow. Nobody, not a single person has mentioned this. I heard the fact that Arsenal played on Thursday and Sunday about 25 times. No one mentioned the fact that we have a quicker turnaround than Arsenal did to play us. But why would they? Everyone wants to see us fail, so I don't really expect anyone to talk about that. But Watford's in the championship. They're eighth right now. I'd expect a weaker lineup, but I would also say that any lineup we put out should be able to beat them. We have enough talented players in a quote unquote weaker lineup to be able to compete with them and beat them. I think we might see Haaland rested tomorrow, maybe Foden back in that false nine role. We haven't seen that for a while. And I'd expect to probably see McAtee out there, Matthias Nunez out there. And I don't know if he'll sprinkle in any more of the youth or the younger guys that really haven't gotten time this year. It wouldn't surprise me if he did, at least to start. If things aren't going terribly well, you might see a little more experience come in, but he might just try it to start, get these players some rest. Again, we're going to be coming back a little more than 48 hours from the last match. So it's going to be about 50 hours ish, not even, from the conclusion of the last match. So obviously not a lot of time to recover. And then we have the early kickoff again already on Saturday. It's never stopping. And I don't know if this Rodri injury has anything to do with the amount of matches we have, but we've already lost our best player and we're not even through September yet. And it's ridiculous. The hopefully we can do well enough in these competitions to be able to rotate our squad appropriately and get players rested. I think, that's why players like James McAtee stuck around. That's why players like Matthias Nunez stuck around, where he could have gone out on loan to have that depth that we needed. Why we bring in a player like Gundogan as well, to make sure that we have that depth and have the players we need if someone goes down. you never like to see an injury. You hate it when it's a player like Rodri, who we absolutely rely on. But I really still don't expect us to go to the transfer market in January, in all honesty. Unless we get another injury or it's going ridiculously terrible, I don't really see us diving into the market and trying to bring someone in. I don't know if it makes sense to, in all honesty, because once Rodri's back, we'd still have to find minutes for that player. I've seen people saying for Calvin Phillips to come back and recall him from loan. I don't really see that happening either. I I think I think his course is a little run unless he starts really knocking out some great performances here and can come back in an excellent form. But that's Watford. Like I said, expect a weaker lineup. Expect a lot of rotation. Ortega in goal. That's another one I forgot. I don't expect to see Ederson tomorrow. Hell, maybe we can put Ederson up top in place of Holland and let Holland get some rest. Not actually, but anyway, let's move into the Newcastle match. So at St. James Park, early kickoff on Saturday. Newcastle sixth, coming off a loss to Fulham. Previous matches, they beat Wolves, they beat Spurs. They gave us trouble last year. We beat them by one each time we played them. They knocked us out of the Carabao Cup as well. So expect them to be strong at home. We needed a late winner against them last year. Obviously, we don't have Bob, who scored that goal last year. We may not have De Bruyne, who assisted that goal last year. So we don't have Alvarez, who scored the one in the other match against them as well either. So I'd expect us to come out with a pretty strong lineup Saturday. Probably fairly similar to this weekend. Obviously, no Rodri. Expect Kovacic in there as well. I'd like to see Foden get back into the starting lineup, get back to his form that he was at last year, where we could rely on him in these big games and big scenarios. He's done fairly well. That first match, I don't think he was fully ready to play. I think he kind of just got thrown into the scenario. But I think beyond that, he's done pretty well. He's shown that he can contribute and continue to help us. So I'd love to see him get a go from the start and really just get to that full match form that we saw last year and really start pumping out some great performances like he did last year. But this week isn't as big as last week in the opponents that we play. I think every match is still important at this point. I I don't want to lose out of the Carabao Cup, but I don't care if we win it or not. So it is what it is, and I focus more on the other three competitions as those are the more important ones. Those are those are the three big ones. But that's what I got for you to guys today. I'm starting to lose my voice. A lot less yelling than I thought I'd have on this episode, and so thank you guys for sticking with me. You know where to find me to follow me at Citizens Fancast on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And go subscribe on YouTube. Go like the videos on YouTube, please. And you can follow along or listen to these episodes back on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, basically any platform you want. They're out there. Google Citizens Fancast. You'll be able to find it wherever you please. So thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate all the support. We'll be back next week. Hopefully everybody stays healthy. We can get 2 wins and I can have a little less gray hairs than I've had gained this past week, just with these stressful performances that we've had going on. But thank you guys for tuning in again, and I'll see you next week.